No, you're not seeing things. I'm not a mirage. I'm not a ghost. It's time for Club Corbie for the first time in about, I think it's been 6 weeks. Oh, I've got a lot of apologising to do. Well, the truth is, I definitely didn't have any intention of going this long without streaming. And I figured I would end up taking a little hiatus because I needed to work on page layouts and some things like that behind the scenes, and also a lot of other real world stuff got in the way as well. And then that real world stuff just sort of continued to extend itself, and once you're out of the habit for a while, which I haven't been streaming for a little while, well, it's one of those things where the longer you leave it, the harder it is to get back into a routine, and so I kept putting it off, and I kept saying, well, I'll have all the pieces in place and I can get back to doing Club Corbie once all the conditions are met, once everything is right, and then that never happened. So tonight I just said, to heck with it, we'll just go ahead, we'll just start. So kind of an impromptu stream tonight, so we'll be on for about an hour tonight, I think. And what I'm working on at the moment is, so I've got this, well, I guess this is like the third batch of pages that I'm working on now. We did the first 10, so 1 through 10, and then those were sort of like a story so far recap sort of thing. The second set that we did on stream for the first half of the summer took us back to the events at Annandale Academy, and that set mostly revolved around Sadie and the IC, and now this next set is 20 through 30, and most of these strips are from a couple of days after that, where Kevin returns to school and meets Sadie. And I'm just going to go on and get started to remember what I've done here is, it looks like a mess when you see it like that, but this is the art for panel 1, the finalised art, which I'm drawing over this sort of rough storyboard art, basically. This is the way that I'm trying to do things at the moment, because I keep chopping and changing my process all the time, but this is how I'm currently doing things. So I'm working on a separate layer on top of that, doing everything above it, and there's a background layer as well, plus I've got like the mock-up bubbles as well, just to give me some idea of where the speech bubbles are going to go. Beneath that I've got a grid layer that just helps me to keep things balanced, composition wise, and keep things organised, and beneath that is just the standard template that I use for this 4-panel format that I've got going now. So with all of that said, I'm going to go on and we'll just continue on. This has been, I did most of the character art for the first panel yesterday, and today I've been working on this one, and this is the second panel, so I'm just going to get started. I'm sure you don't want to hear me talking and not actually see me drawing. That kind of defeats the purpose of the stream. Make sure I'm in the right layer as well. So, having not streamed for so long, as soon as I started up the computer again and got it set up, I had to go and update all my software. I had to do a Windows update. I haven't been in the studio for most of the time that I've been away. I haven't been streaming. I haven't really been on the desktop computer in the studio much, so I had a million Windows updates to get. I had to update Streamlabs. I had to log into everything. And it took me about half an hour. And then I said, well, this is it now. I can finally start. Do you have your pen, John? Do you have the pen for your Intuos tablet that you use when you're in the studio when you're drawing? And I went to go look. And the pen wasn't there. Is it in the drawers? Went all the way through the drawers multiple times. And it wasn't there. Pulled apart everything in the entire studio area, which I cleaned up a couple of weeks ago, and it was nowhere to be found. Went into the living room, couldn't find it. Again, started pulling things apart, and I'm thinking, oh well, that's going to be another day with no stream then, because if I can't find a pen to draw, there's obviously not much we can do till I do. Went upstairs, went into the bedroom. Sitting on the cabinet in front of the TV is my pen for my Intuos tablet. Why it would be upstairs, I don't know. I can only assume at some point in the last couple of weeks I just absentmindedly picked it up, took it upstairs, wasn't thinking about what I was doing, so so some last minute technical issues there. I guess you could call it technical issues, but we made it. I'm not happy with that. That ties to Naira. As you might know, Sadie and Corinne, probably my favourite pairing in the comic, my favourite characters to draw together. I think just because Corinne is a bit more sort of restrained, and what's the word I'm looking for here? A bit more apprehensive about things, and Sadie just kind of is not like that. She's much more assertive, I suppose. And if you've read the first issue of Corbie, then and first and the second, I suppose, then you know that really Sadie sort of lighting a fire under Corinne is the only reason that she ends up becoming Corbie in the first place. And I often talk about how I kind of feel like in a more just world, Sadie would have ended up being the hero instead, and Sadie would have become Corbie, and probably would commit herself to it a lot more, would be much more proactive, whereas Corinne kind of has to grow into the role. So these rough versions of the illustrations really are just the storyboards, just what I'm terming them, or what I'm calling them. And I did these for, not for every panel, but I went back and did them retroactively. Put my teeth in. retroactively for this panel at least, this page, I went back and did 1, 2 and 3 and 4 I'd already done. What I've been doing is just trying to figure out what the basic layout is for each panel, and then if it's really like a character based panel like that one I've created at the bottom there where she's got the sweat drop thing going, I would fill them in. And then when I'm actually going back and drawing them, just doing these very rough sketches to just sort of get the energy of what the panel is supposed to be like, how the characters are supposed to interact. And then when it comes time to actually draw the finalised art, I'm just trying to build upon that, do a very sort of refined version of that where everything is on model. But what I always find is, and I think you'll hear this from a lot of artists, is your rough draft of something, when you go to make your finalised image, very often you feel like it loses a lot of the spark that was in the original art. And so you're always trying to sort of reclaim that. As an example, I really think you see it with, if we look at the first panel, and the way that I just sketched out how Corinne is supposed to look in this first panel, and sort of like the flow of the hair and things like that. This would have been done in, Corinne would have been drawn here maybe in like the space of 2 minutes, without a whole lot of thought put into it. And then when I go to draw the finalised one, she's a bit more like, I tried to keep the flow of the hair and things in there while also keeping everything on model, but inevitably you're gonna find that things just become a bit more rigid as you try and make things adhere to character models, because you want to also keep everything consistent. And also you're thinking about real world anatomy and physics and things like that. You're starting to incorporate all of those things that you're not thinking about when you're doing, you know, that first rough sketch, that storyboard. Like at this point, you can probably hear me sort of going Control Z over and over again, as I just try and refine the shape of Corinne's forearm there. And I'm going to pull off the side of Sadie's hand here, because Corinne's wrist is going to come up through the hand, if you see what I mean, into the palm of the hand. And just start by doing it very roughly to begin with. Something like that, and then we can build it out from there. You can see how we need to make all the aspects of both Corinne's hand and Sadie's hand here sort of interact, as Sadie is dragging Corinne through the school hall, and Corinne doesn't know where they're going. So my plan at this point is I'm really just trying to get back into the swing of things now. I had a lot of other commitments that came up, especially over the last sort of week or two. That were unforeseen and really meant that I just didn't have time to work on Corbie at all for a while anyway, and now all of that is kind of behind me, and I can get back to working the comic, spending a lot more time in the comic now and giving it my full attention, or most of my attention anyway. Sometimes I'll just add in like a jagged line like that just to represent the knuckles. But sometimes it becomes maybe like a partial line, depending on how detailed the image needs to be. Sadie's hand is a bit oversized actually. I think we could pull that back down. And not for the first time today either. I ended up doing Sadie with like a giant paws, and then I had to scale them back down a bit. Yeah, I kinda don't like that actually. I don't usually start halfway down the arm like this, but we could do. It helps if you have a guideline like we do here with the rough sketch to work with as well. I definitely wouldn't start at the elbow joint if I didn't have the underlying sort of framework here to build upon. it would just be a strange starting point. But as it is, I can see where I'm going, if you see what I mean. I've got a guide. Maybe could add a little bit of a zigzag up there, just to sort of indicate a fold in the arm where the fabric of the shirt just sort of bunches up near the elbow. Ah, that's annoying. You get the sort of the swoop there. Might have to do that a couple of times. Or even, yeah, that's a little bit better. 2 separate strokes, and then just to make sure they're both fairly symmetrical. Well, the first thing that we'll do is adjust it slightly. Make sure that's set to hard edge so we don't get that fuzzy kind of effect, and then we can copy that, paste it away the second line. We'll just merge them together. And I'm going to be really fussy here and go and check on the model sheet. There are 5 lines down the sort of lowest section of Corinne's vest that she wears in her school uniform. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, like that. And I'm sure if you look through the history of the comic, that's completely not consistent even after, you know, the new character designs were introduced, but today will be consistent. I think I would like these outer lines to just be a bit thicker. Really just make the characters a bit more punchy. And have them stand out a bit more once we add the background in. A lot of the background elements are already done actually, I just have them on another layer that we're not mucking about with today. We're just going to focus on the character art. I want to make sure that when all of those elements are combined, they're really going to stand out. Anyway, this set, this is page 21, so 21 through 30 is really going to be about going back to an all digital process, and it's going to be about getting these pages done as quickly as we can. What I really wanted to do, well, it's September now. What I really wanted to do was have this new ongoing series of Corbie pages that we've really been working on all year, I suppose. I really want to start actually having them made available online in a serialized format and start, you know, around mid-October, which would be the second anniversary of when Corbie issue 1 went up, so it would be a good time, a fitting time to do it. I don't know if that's going to happen because I don't know, I'm kind of precious about this. I want to have 50 of these pages and we're only at page 21 just now, so unless we really start tearing through these and really pick up speed all of a sudden, I don't think that's going to happen. But you know, failing that, who knows, maybe it'll be by New Year. And I think this new format that we've been doing, this black and white format that's much more intended for social media and for smaller sort of regular updates, is going to be, it's going to be almost like a soft reboot in a way. The story is continuing, but we're representing the story in a way that I hope is going to be accessible to people who haven't read the previous 4 issues, and in a new style and in a new format, and it wouldn't require anyone to go off to some website and read it as one continuous comic book that only comes out every couple of months. It's going to be something that you can just follow along on social media and read it. It's not going to be every day. I think that much has become quite clear, that it's going to be, I think it's going to be more like maybe twice a week. The way I see it, if we can get 50 of these issues made, that's going to be, and if we put out 2 of them a week, that's going to be obviously 6 months worth of content. So well, those are going up online very gradually. I can already be working on the next 6 month stat. You see what I mean? So you can see why that would be a very alluring idea to me, to have 6 months of content in the can before we even begin. Unfortunately, it also means, I really would have liked to have been able to do this 5 days a week, but obviously that's not feasible with the amount of time it takes me to do each page. It's crazy to think, by the way, that, hold on, I'm looking at this. I think I might need to extend Corinne's legs out further. I'm looking at the position of her hands relative to where her knees are, and either her arms are very long, which I don't think they are. The elbows are meeting at the midsection, or the legs are very short, and I think it's that the legs are too short. But the pelvis is like here. The thighs would be very short, so yeah, but I'm going to have to extend out the legs, so at least I noticed. Like I said, the initial rough sketches, the anatomy on them isn't intended to be perfect. It's just like getting the placement right, getting the proportions of the characters right, which they mostly are here, except for what happened with Corinne, but making sure that I can get a handle on everybody's movements and how they're going to look on the page and what their expressions are going to be like, and just to give me some sort of framework to work off of. But I think that this is also possibly a little bit too short. Maybe needs to be pulled down to about here. What was I saying? Oh yeah. Yeah, it's crazy to me to think that it's September now, but come November it's going to have been 4 full years since I started working on Corbie and doing the sort of development work behind the scenes, and it took almost 2 years to actually get that first issue out. But I had been sitting on it for years before that, and we got to end of 2016, and I felt like now was the time. And that was when the wheels started to be put in motion. And I think by the springtime, I think it was actually spring 2017 before I started drawing the first issue, because it took me a couple of months. I spent a couple of months just doing character designs and things like that, writing scripts for the first couple of issues as well. I have to say that I'd hoped that I would be further along in the story by now than I am. That's kind of a limitation of the fact that as a writer, I can get material, done fairly quickly. As an artist, I'm not so fast, like, at all. Okay. I have to keep an eye on the clock as well, because I do have a couple of other commitments that I've got to juggle tonight as well. So I really need to I can't really do more than an hour tonight. And I don't know when the next stream after this is going to be, because this wasn't really scheduled, this was something that I had to just make myself sit down and say, no, we've got to get things going again as far as Club Corbie goes. We've got to just get back into it. I don't think that the evening streams are going to be a regular thing. I think we'll probably be streaming afternoons like we did before. I'm drawing the skirt in, even though I don't know how I'm going to reproportion the legs yet, so the skirt might end up being the wrong size, but we can always go back and fix it as well, I suppose. Also, this fold here, a little bit lopsided. The pleat, I think, is the term that I'm looking for. Yeah, I actually have on Pinterest. I have a whole board that I keep for reference with pictures of skirts, and especially pleated skirts and things like that, of different lengths, and you know, in motion, if I ever see anything like that in terms of, for, you know, fashion references. I keep a lot of fashion references anyway in case I ever need them, but also specifically whenever I see a photograph that has skirts, especially sort of like the pleated skirts that Karen in particular is always wearing, but they're part of the school uniform anyway, I make a point of adding them to my board on Pinterest, so that if I ever end up having to draw someone in a specific pose where the fabric is sort of like swirling in a certain direction, I can always go back and say, do I have a photo reference for that? Now, do I ever actually refer to those pins? No. But if I ever do, I know that they're there, and that's kind of reassuring. Pre-Pinterest, I used to do that all locally in terms of, well, I still do keep local photograph files of items and locales and things like that. Obviously you can use Google Images, so if you're ever stuck now, you can just look it up. But it's also handy to have your own sort of local archive of photos that you can refer back to, that you've curated yourself, and then you don't have to go searching through hundreds of files, or hundreds of images online, scrolling through page after page on Google or whatever. You can just you know you've got those local files, and you know you've got what you need specifically. So we're going to pull this leg out a bit in terms of the length of it. Just start to roughly develop where the leg's going to go, but the knee is going to be, it's up here just now, so my knees lately, whenever I have to draw knees, I just it looks like a pair of evil eyes. I don't know where that came from, but the kneecap, just sort of the lower recesses of it, just right now is just getting done as like it looks like that. Usually underneath the pleats of the skirt I'll add a little bit of shadow as well. speaking about sort of building up a reference library, though, yeah, I do think it's a good idea. You can have, you know, a good library of things that are just, even if it's just like other pieces of comic art that you're looking at just for inspiration. I mean, not to just sort of paste them into your own work. Obviously, you're making your own content, and I'm not encouraging you to. Well, I don't think it's a good idea to refer to comic art for reference anyway. For example, if you try to get like a pose or something, right, I would not suggest that. Usually you should look at other comics. You should actually go and look at the real world version of that pose. But in general, I think it's a good idea to keep a library of the sort of art that inspires you, just because it's going to help you to get a feel for your own style as well, and what it is that you want to draw as an artist. And also, obviously, I mean, other things. If you're using something like Pinterest, you can actually build up a pretty good library of art tutorials and resources and things like that. I don't know. Something is definitely off here as far as the legs go. I'm not sure what's happened. I'm so sure that they're off. I'm just going to pull the entire leg off. Both of them. I'm going to pull both legs off. And I think what I might do is instead of referring to the rough art layer or storyboard layer, whatever you want to call it, I might just draw the lower leg in myself. I drew the full leg in myself actually, not just the lower leg but the thigh as well, obviously is what I'm doing. Yeah, I think we should maybe only see the very edge of the sock actually. Again, I've got the character model sheet in a separate window, so I'm looking back at that. I'm using that for reference instead of the sketch. I know when my concentration is starting to waver. Well, maybe I've been down for a little bit too long because it's when I start to just squiggle lines and I'm not being deliberate anymore, I'm not taking my time, I'm just sort of scrolling lines across the page and I'm not even trying to get it right, so I maintain my focus. So I'm almost done for this stream anyway, but in general I find if you get to that point where you realise that you just start to get sloppy and you just start to make mistakes. Good idea to, at that point, to take a break. Get something to drink. Take a walk. you know what I mean? It's like even if it's just like walk around the house for 5-10 minutes. Just, don't go away for like 6 weeks and then you've lost track and you have to start all over again, like I did. The irony is that a lot of the lower section of this panel I might end up getting covered in speech bubbles. I don't know. Yeah. Yeah, okay, look at that. That's the placement where the speech bubble's going to go. That's not the actual speech bubble, that's just a rough mock-up that I made earlier on to figure out where it's going. So all this agonizing that I'm doing about is the lower half of the body too short. I've got the proportions wrong. Maybe it doesn't even really matter that much, but we'll know anyway. We'll know that it's right. Because we've seen it made here on stream. Also, you never really know for sure. I mean, I made like mock bubbles just to figure out the placement of them, make sure that I was giving all the elements in the page, you know, enough room to breathe. But you never really know until you've actually got the finalised speech bubbles on the page how much of the art is going to be visible and how much isn't. So you gotta be careful. I like to figure out the speech bubbles are going to go as early as I can. I feel like it's a really integral part of getting more done more quickly as a comic artist. Is the more of the steps I can incorporate early on, like figuring out where the speech bubbles are going to go and which areas are going to be obscured. You know, then I know, if I know how much real estate they're going to take up, then I also know which areas of the art are going to require focus and which I can, you know, not put as much effort into. I've still got to do Sadie's lower half now as well, so now the whole thing's going to start again. But because Corinne's already, you know, filled in, that helps because I've got like a frame of reference now. I know upper body is kind of long actually. The torso is kind of extended a bit, perhaps. I also need to keep the height consistent, you know, and Corinne does have a bit of height on Sadie, who's a bit shorter, so might pull Corinne's torso back down a bit because this is a very long sort of tube that I've got here for the midsection. I don't know. Okay, so I've been talking for an hour and I'm still not back into the swing of things yet. What's left to do? Yes, some of Sadie's still to develop on this panel, and I need to add in Corinne's backpack that she's supposed to be holding in her hand here, and then panels 3 and 4 after that. But I think I'm going to wrap it up there for tonight because I've been doing a fair bit today, and like I said, I think my attention is starting to waver. Also, that's been a full hour that we've been going now, so I want to thank you for joining me on this surprise stream. It was completely unannounced. I never said that we were going to do it, so thank you for watching. I'm not sure if we're going to be streaming tomorrow, but if we're not streaming tomorrow, we'll definitely be streaming on Monday, and I think by Monday we'll get back into a regular schedule, and I assume it's going to be, we'll do 2 till 3 PM UK time. That is subject to change, so do stay tuned. Do follow me on all the usual channels, on YouTube, on Twitter, on Twitch, wherever. You know where to find the stream if you're watching already. And I hope to see you for the next Club Corbie, which I promise you will not be 6 weeks from now. So yeah, thank you for watching, and I hope you come back for the next show.